Former special counsel Jack Smith will appear before the House Judiciary Committee and for a public hearing.
Jack Smith, a special counsel who handled those two investigations into President Trump into alleged election subversion and the mishandling of classified documents, will appear on Capitol Hill before the House Judiciary Committee at some point.
Donald Trump is absolutely losing his mind right now. And I mean that in the most literal sense possible, because what just happened on Capitol Hill is the kind of political nightmare that Trump thought he had escaped forever when he won the election. But he didn't escape it. He just delayed it. And now all of those delays, all of those legal maneuvers, all of that running out the clock is coming back to bite him in the most spectacular and devastating way imaginable. And if you want to keep up with coverage that actually tells you what's happening, make sure you subscribe to The John Brown Show. We're giving you the real analysis without corporate spin. Here's what's happening. Jack Smith, the former special counsel who spent years investigating Donald Trump, who built criminal cases against him, who had him dead to rights on multiple felonies, is about to testify publicly before Congress. Not in some closed-door session, not in a classified briefing. Public testimony, live on camera, under oath, in front of the entire country. And if you don't know who Jack Smith is, let me tell you. This is the guy who investigated Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election. The guy who looked at January 6th and everything leading up to it and said, yeah, this is a crime. Multiple crimes, actually, and I can prove it. The guy who also went after Trump for the classified documents case down in Florida. The guy who indicted Trump on federal charges that should have put him in prison for the rest of his life. The guy who watched all of that work disappear the moment Trump won the 2024 election and got presidential immunity. Jack Smith isn't some political appointee you can dismiss as partisan. This is a career prosecutor who spent decades going after war criminals and organized crime figures. This is someone with a reputation for building cases so airtight that conviction is basically guaranteed. This is the kind of prosecutor who doesn't bring charges unless he's absolutely certain he can win. And he brought charges against Donald Trump, multiple charges, for serious federal felonies. But here's the thing about presidential immunity. It protects you from prosecution. It doesn't erase what you did. It doesn't make the evidence go away. It doesn't stop Jack Smith from remembering exactly what crimes Trump committed. And it definitely doesn't prevent him from sitting in front of Congress and telling the entire world, yeah, Donald Trump is a criminal. I proved it. And the only reason he's not in prison right now is because you voted for him. That's what's about to happen. Late January, House Judiciary Committee. Jack Smith is going to walk through every single piece of evidence he collected against Trump. Every witness statement, every document, every phone call, every text message, every goddamn thing that proves Trump tried to steal an election he lost and obstructed the peaceful transfer of power. And Democrats on that committee have been preparing for months to make this as painful as possible for Trump. They've studied every court filing Jack Smith submitted. They know every detail of his investigation. They've got questions lined up that are designed to extract maximum damage. Questions like, Mr. Smith, did you have enough evidence to convict Donald Trump? And Jack Smith is going to say yes. Could you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed federal crimes related to January 6th? Yes. What about the classified documents case? Yes to that too. Would Donald Trump be in prison right now if he wasn't president? Absolutely yes. And here's what makes this so absolutely devastating. Jack Smith has already told lawmakers in closed-door depositions that he could prove Trump's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not probably guilty or likely committed crimes. That's the standard for criminal conviction. That's Jack Smith saying he had enough evidence to put Trump behind bars if the case had gone to trial. Think about what that does to Trump politically. He's been running around for months telling everyone that the collapsed prosecutions prove he was innocent, that the whole thing was a witch hunt, that Jack Smith had nothing, that there was never any real evidence against him. And now you're going to have Jack Smith himself sitting under oath on national television saying, actually, the evidence was overwhelming. I could have convicted Trump on obstruction of the electoral count, I could have convicted him on the classified documents charges, and the only reason he's not serving a prison sentence is a legal technicality called presidential immunity. That destroys Trump's entire narrative, completely obliterates it, because you can dismiss Democrats as partisan. You can call journalists fake news, but when Jack Smith, a prosecutor who's put war criminals in prison, says you're guilty, that's different. That carries weight. Even with people who generally like Trump or who voted for him, there's going to be this nagging thought of, wait, maybe he actually did commit crimes. Maybe the only reason he's not in prison is because he won an election. And the timing of this is absolutely brutal for Trump. Jack Smith's testimony is happening right as Trump is trying to consolidate power in his second term, right as he's pushing his most aggressive policies, right as he needs maximum political capital to get things done. Instead, every single news cycle is going to be dominated by Jack Smith explaining in detail how Trump tried to overthrow American democracy. Every interview with a Republican lawmaker becomes, so Jack Smith says Trump committed crimes and would have been convicted. Do you still support him? Every campaign event for vulnerable Republicans in swing districts becomes, the special counsel who investigated your party leader says he's a criminal. Why should we vote for you? Every independent voter who gave Trump another chance gets reminded of exactly why they had doubts about him in the first place. And I need to be really clear about what Jack Smith is going to testify about, because this isn't vague stuff. This is specific criminal conduct. Jack Smith investigated Trump's efforts to pressure state officials to overturn election results, his scheme to create fake electors, his attempts to get the Justice Department to declare the election fraudulent when they knew it wasn't, his pressure campaign on Mike Pence to refuse to certify the electoral count, and everything that happened on January 6th when Trump watched the Capitol being attacked and did nothing for hours while people begged him to call it off. Jack Smith built cases showing Trump knew he lost the election, that people around him told him repeatedly there was no fraud, that he pushed ahead anyway with schemes to stay in power. That's not a difference of political opinion. That's conspiracy to defraud the United States. That's obstruction of an official proceeding. Those are serious federal crimes that Jack Smith was ready to prove in court. And on the classified documents side, Jack Smith had Trump on tape discussing classified information. He acknowledged he couldn't declassify anymore because he wasn't president. Trump's own words contradicting his entire defense that he had some blanket authority to declassify everything. Jack Smith had witnesses who saw how Trump stored those documents, who were told to move them to hide them from investigators, who were asked to delete security footage. That's obstruction of justice. That's unlawful retention of national defense information, crimes with clear evidence and clear intent. But wait, it gets worse for Trump. Because while Jack Smith is preparing to testify about all of this, there's this whole other thing that just exploded. Grand jury transcripts from Georgia's investigation into Trump's election interference just got released to the public, and these transcripts include testimony from major Republicans. I'm talking about Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp. I'm talking about Senator Lindsey Graham, people who were publicly backing Trump's stolen election narrative. And you know what these Republicans said when they were under oath in front of that grand jury? When lying meant they'd go to prison for perjury? They said Trump's election fraud claims were complete bullshit, that they investigated his allegations and found nothing, that the election was legitimate and Trump lost fair and square. Let me repeat that because it's so important. Republicans who were appearing at Trump rallies, who were going on Fox News saying maybe there was fraud, who were giving credibility to Trump's stolen election lies, those same Republicans got in front of a grand jury where they had to tell the truth, and they admitted it was all nonsense. Governor Brian Kemp testified that he personally looked into Trump's claims about Georgia and found them to be without merit, that Georgia's election was conducted properly, that Trump lost fair and square. But publicly, Kemp was careful not to contradict Trump too forcefully because he needed Trump's base to stay viable in Georgia Republican politics. And Lindsey Graham? Oh man, Lindsey Graham's testimony is particularly disgusting because Graham was one of Trump's most vocal defenders during the entire post-election period. He was on TV constantly suggesting that irregularities needed to be investigated, that the election results were questionable, giving credibility to Trump's lies. And then he gets in front of that grand jury and admits under oath that he thought Trump's claims were overblown, that he didn't believe there was fraud sufficient to change the outcome, that Trump needed to accept that he lost. Are you kidding me right now? Lindsey Graham was publicly backing Trump's election lies while privately admitting under oath that he knew they were false. That's not political spin. That's not having different opinions. That's deliberately lying to the American public because you're more scared of Trump's base than you are of destroying faith in American democracy. And this isn't some random minor figure we're talking about. Lindsey Graham was chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He had credibility, he had influence, and he used that credibility to spread lies he knew were false. Why? Because telling the truth might have cost him politically. Because Trump would have attacked him. Because the MAGA base would have turned on him. So he chose to participate in a massive disinformation campaign that undermined American elections. He chose to help Trump try to overturn a legitimate election result. He chose party loyalty over truth. And now we have his sworn testimony proving he knew exactly what he was doing. The significance of these transcripts coming out right now, at the same time Jack Smith is preparing to testify, is that they completely destroy Trump's stolen election narrative from every angle. You've got Jack Smith about to explain how Trump ran a criminal scheme to overturn the election, and you've got Trump's own Republican allies on record admitting under oath that the election fraud claims were lies. Trump has been claiming for years that the 2020 election was rigged, that there was massive fraud, that he actually won and it was stolen from him. And a huge part of what's kept that lie alive is that prominent Republicans have been reluctant to forcefully contradict him. They use this ambiguous language like, well, there were some concerns about election integrity, or we should investigate irregularities. And that ambiguity lets Trump's base believe that maybe, just maybe, there really was something wrong with the election. But now we have the answer. We have sworn testimony from Republicans like Kemp and Graham saying unambiguously that Trump's claims were false, that they looked into it and found nothing, that Trump lost legitimately. And this testimony isn't coming from Democrats. It's not coming from never-Trumpers. It's coming from Republicans who wanted Trump to win, who tried to help him, but who couldn't lie under oath when faced with prison time for perjury. That's devastating. That's the kind of evidence that breaks through even the most hardened partisan defenses, because you can't dismiss your own party members as biased when they're testifying against you. You can't call them fake news. You can't claim it's a witch hunt. These are people on Trump's side who are saying under legal penalty that he lied about the election. So you've got this perfect storm brewing for Trump. You've got Jack Smith about to testify that Trump committed crimes and should be in prison. You've got Trump's own party members on record admitting his election lies were false. And you've got all of this happening right before midterm elections where Republicans are already polling terribly and Trump's approval is stuck around 40%. Democrats are going to absolutely hammer this. Every single campaign ad is going to feature Jack Smith saying Trump is a criminal. Every debate is going to include questions about why Republicans are still supporting someone their own members say lied about elections. Every swing district is going to get flooded with mailers showing the contrast between what Republicans said publicly versus what they admitted under oath. And Republicans have no good answer to any of it. What are they going to say? Yeah, Jack Smith, who investigated Trump, says he committed crimes, but we think he should be president anyway? Sure, our own party members admitted under oath that Trump lied about the election, but we're still backing him? There's no message discipline that fixes that problem. Trump's response has been exactly what you'd expect. Absolute meltdown on social media, attacking Jack Smith as a partisan hack, claiming the grand jury transcripts are fake or taken out of context, demanding that Republicans defend him more aggressively, threatening to primary anyone who doesn't show sufficient loyalty. But here's the problem with that strategy. It only works when the evidence against you is hidden or ambiguous, when you can create doubt about what actually happened, when you can claim it's just political attacks with no substance. But when you've got Jack Smith willing to testify publicly about your crimes, when you've got your own party members on record saying you lied, attacking the messengers doesn't work anymore. The facts are the facts. And the facts are that Donald Trump tried to overturn an election he lost, that Jack Smith proved Trump committed federal crimes in the process, that the only reason Trump's not in prison is because he won another election and got presidential immunity. and that Republicans who publicly backed his lies privately knew they were false, but went along with them anyway out of political cowardice. Those are the facts that are about to dominate every news cycle for months. Those are the facts that swing voters are going to hear over and over again as Jack Smith testifies. Those are the facts that are going to define the 2026 midterms and determine whether Republicans can hold power or whether voters decide they're done with a party that protects criminals and lies about elections. Now, Trump thought he escaped all of this by winning the 2024 election. He thought presidential immunity meant his legal problems disappeared, that Jack Smith's prosecutions falling apart meant vindication, that he could just move on and govern without this hanging over him. But what Trump didn't understand is that presidential immunity only delays accountability. It doesn't erase it. Jack Smith still has all the evidence, all the witness statements, all the documents, all the proof of Trump's crimes. Presidential immunity just means Smith can't prosecute right now. It doesn't mean the crimes didn't happen. And while that prosecution is paused, Jack Smith is doing something really smart. He's preserving all the evidence in public record. He's testifying before Congress about what he found. He's creating this comprehensive, documented history of Trump's crimes that can't be hidden or buried or classified, so that when Trump eventually loses presidential immunity, when he's a private citizen again, there's no question about whether there's sufficient evidence to prosecute. Jack Smith testifying publicly is essentially building a roadmap for Trump's future prosecution. Here's the evidence we collected. Here's how it proves Trump obstructed the electoral count. Here's how it proves he illegally retained classified documents. Here's why conviction is certain if we go to trial. That testimony becomes part of the permanent congressional record, gets cited in future legal proceedings, provides the framework for whatever prosecutor eventually takes these cases after Trump leaves office. Trump can delay his prosecution. He can use immunity to pause it, but he can't make it go away. And every day that more evidence becomes public through Jack Smith's testimony is another day that makes future prosecution more inevitable, because the record becomes so comprehensive that no future prosecutor could justify not bringing charges. And here's the really terrifying part for Trump. Jack Smith is going to testify that he had evidence to convict Trump on both the January 6th case and the classified documents case. Both cases. That's multiple federal felonies across different criminal schemes. That's not one mistake or one bad decision. That's a pattern of criminal conduct. The classified documents case alone should have put Trump in prison. Jack Smith had him on tape talking about classified information he knew he couldn't share. Had witnesses who saw Trump showing classified documents to people without clearances. Had evidence that Trump ordered his staff to hide documents from investigators and delete security footage. That's textbook obstruction of justice. And on January 6th, Jack Smith had the whole conspiracy documented. Trump's conversations with lawyers like John Eastman about schemes to overturn the election, Trump's calls to state officials pressuring them to find votes, the fake elector scheme, Trump's pressure on Pence, and Trump sitting in the White House watching the Capitol attack on TV while doing nothing for hours, even as people around him begged him to call it off. Jack Smith built these cases knowing he could prove every element beyond a reasonable doubt. He wasn't fishing. He wasn't hoping. He had Trump dead to rights. And he's going to explain all of that under oath to Congress and the American people. The political calculation Democrats are making is really clear. Use Jack Smith's testimony to destroy Trump's credibility with swing voters. Tie every vulnerable Republican to Trump's criminality. Make the 2026 midterms about accountability and whether America still believes in the rule of law. That's a powerful message that could overcome the usual midterm advantages for the party out of power. And Republicans are absolutely trapped. They can't defend Trump without looking like they're okay with criminal behavior. They can't distance themselves from Trump without fracturing their base and depressing turnout. They can't explain away Jack Smith's testimony or their own members admitting under oath that Trump lied. There's no good political position for them to take. I don't know how many more ways I can explain how absolutely devastating this is for Trump. You've got Jack Smith about to tell the world that Trump committed crimes. You've got Trump's own party members on record saying he lied about elections. You've got all of this happening right before midterms. This is the kind of political disaster that ends presidencies, and Trump knows it. You can see it in how unhinged his social media has become, how desperate his attacks on Jack Smith are, how much he's demanding loyalty from Republicans who are increasingly wondering whether defending him is worth destroying their own careers. This is a man who thought he escaped accountability and is now watching it catch up to him in the worst possible way. Make sure you're subscribed because Jack Smith's testimony is just the beginning. This is going to open the floodgates for more revelations, more evidence, more documentation of Trump's crimes. We're going to be covering every single development as it happens. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and remember, accountability matters. Democracy only works when people who commit crimes face consequences.